There are so many parts to the college application process that I know it can be overwhelming, okay? I get you. So that's why I'm going to try to compress 4 months worth of knowledge into this 10-minute video for you, just for you. So just to give you a general overview of the 3 different portals, the Common App portal is just the one that everyone uses. The Coalition app lets you submit a portfolio, so let's say you were a musician, you make music, or you perform, whatever, you're in an orchestra. If you want to submit that, you can use the Coalition app. And then there's a school-specific one. Don't even worry about that. Pretend that doesn't exist. You don't need to know what that is. Just pretend it doesn't exist. I think most schools got rid of their school-specific portals as well, because that means the students will have to write an individual main essay for each school that they apply to, which is horrible. One is enough. One Common App essay is enough. So yeah, moving on to essays. There's 2 main types of essays that you need to know about. There's the Common App or the main essay, and then there's the supplemental essays. These 2 are different because the main essay is the one that every college sees. Every college sees the same essay. Supplemental essays are specific to that school. So one school's supplemental essays might be different from another school's supplemental essays, and they range in numbers. So they might be just 1, like Northwestern, or there might be 10, depending on how sadistic the college admissions officers are for that school. The reason why I suggest everyone to apply to the Common App is because you can submit musical portfolios if you want later on. You have to pay more money to do so, but generally it doesn't matter that much. For all of the portfolios that I sent of my music playing, I got into none of those schools, so I don't know if it matters or not, but just to give you that information. So moving on to the Common App itself, there's 2 different things you need to prepare. One of them is honors and the second one is activity. So what's the difference between these? Honors is the awards that you've gotten, and activities is the stuff that you've done. I'm not sure why they have to separate this, because it's not like you can get awards and stuff you haven't done before. I don't know. And I realized that I forgot to mention my honors in my stat video, so I'm going to mention them here. You're welcome. There's a total of 5 that you have to choose, and I'm assuming this is very important in determining what your story is. I'll get to more of that later. So as you can see, you need to specifically say which grade and how big the award is. So on what level? Is it local? Is it national? It's a checkbox, so you have to check it. And you can kind of see that I'm not a Spike student. Just from these honors alone, you can tell I'm not a Spike student. So I'm assuming these honors have a large role to play, especially when it comes to determining if you are a Spike student or not. Okay, so next step here, we're finally at the stage where you need to develop your story. So what is a story? A story is a thread. It's a common thread that you can tie between all of your activities that kind of tells who you are. It's essentially a fan fiction of your origin story. It's essentially that. So make sure that you have a good story, because if you don't have a good story and it just seems like you're doing a bunch of these random activities with no common thread, they can't tell. If you ever heard college admissions officers talking about holistic admissions, this is what they're talking about. They're holistically evaluating you by creating the story of who you are in their heads. So I think in order to help them do that, you need to create a story. And there's actually several places in your Common App where you need to do this. Of course, this is just a theory. None of this is proven, and I think it varies depending on which admission officers you ask. That's why it's called holistic. But although I'm telling you that you need to make a story, I'm not going to cover how specifically to make that story. I'm only going to cover where the story will be located in the Common App, because otherwise this video would be too long. Number 1, there's a career interest text box inside the education tab on your Common App. There you can select what major or what career you might be interested in doing in the future. Why is this important? This is very important because it is kind of like a final goal, right? It doesn't have to be something you like. You know, I know a lot of people want to put something that they like to do, but none of their application supports that major. Don't do that. Choose a major or choose a career that is supported by your activities. Don't do it the other way around. But you can always switch majors when you are in college. So don't worry about this being a binding decision at all. It's not a binding decision. You can choose whichever major, whichever career that you like. It doesn't matter. It only matters that you prove that you have a goal, that you have consistency in trying to achieve this goal. That's why they're asking this question. Next step to developing your story is organizing your activity list. So previously, as I said, there's the honors and there's the activity list. This is the activity list. So you have to list 10 different activities that you have done. I know some people say don't list all 10 activities, and that's up to your discretion because I don't have a solution to this. I can only try it one time. But it doesn't matter how many activities you include. Each activity needs to be the best that it is, the best level that you can get it at. So a lot of people tend to leave out information that kind of diminishes the level of their activity, the impact their activity has. There's several things you need to think about when you're organizing your activities. Number one is your impact. What is the impact? You can't just say that you're doing it and you have no results. That doesn't prove anything. You need to prove the impact of your work. Number two, you need to prove the consistency. Are you consistent with this? Because if you're not consistent with this, then colleges feel like you won't be able to continue to do this in college. That's very important because they're trying to look for spike students or well-rounded students, I guess. I don't know, man. And number three, what is your specialty? Make it special. You need to make it specific so it's very niche. Like for example, when I included I was a classical pianist, I also included that I was specialized. I was better at playing modern contemporary music than I was at I didn't say then I was at the other ones, but you get what I mean. You need to write what is true. Okay, don't lie. You know what I mean. Don't write anything negative. I emailed every college an update that I was going to take 2 fewer APs because I was so afraid that they would reject me after knowing that I was taking 2 less APs. So I feel like that had an impact on my college process. Please don't do what I did. So remember how I was talking about being able to weave a thread throughout your activities? Here is the place where you need to explain everything. Here is the place where you need to write your origin story. It's the additional information section. I know a lot of people say like, oh, this is just additional information. I don't need to worry about this. They're wrong because this part is one of the most important parts of your application. You're explaining things. This is the part where you can become meta and explain everything. Explain why you weren't able to do some things. Like for example, for me, I explained my different activities because of COVID. So like prior COVID, I had Taekwondo, I worked on a project for the visually impaired and blind, and post COVID, I worked on Study Bubbly, I did some other stuff, student council. I use COVID as kind of an explanation to why I have different activities. You can use the same thing. Well, I don't know because later generations, COVID, anyways, don't leave it blank. Use it to explain anything you like. I was so absolutely bold with the additional information section that I decided to include a piece of creative writing there. I don't know why I did that, but I don't know if it negatively or positively impacted my application, if it affected it at all, but we'll see when we read the admissions files. We're so excited for that. We've basically gone through the whole Common App thing. There's a few tips that I want to give though that kind of don't go with the essay stuff, so I'm gonna give them a rapid fire session. Get out a paper, pen, write with your blood. I don't care, just write it down. Okay, number one, know where your parents went to college, when they graduated, where they graduated from, their current job, the times of their jobs. Just know that. Number two, know your social security number. Number three, make sure that you double check. You select the box that said you want an interview. Like even if you don't want an interview, like don't risk the chance of that taking off points from your application. You know, like if you really cannot do an interview or if you can't really speak English, don't do it. But I feel like most people should try. Even if you struggle through the interview, I feel like it's a chance that you should take because interviews, I feel like, are very helpful. Some schools like Cornell even have these informational interviews where it's like, this will not affect your application and blah, 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 your application process. This is just for you to get to know our school a little better. But I still applied for an interview there because I feel like taking extra precautions to do this is just going to benefit you. Plus, it's just practice for interviews. And if they say it's not going to hurt you that much, it's just going to give you a bonus, you should do it. I don't know why I'm trying to sell you on doing interviews so hard. Recommendations. When you're asking for recommendations from teachers, you just need to ask them once because they just write a recommendation in general for you. It's like your main Common App essay. They're not writing for specific schools. So they only need to write one recommendation for you and you can just select their name in the Common App for that school's recommendations. Different schools have different limits. Some have 2, some have 3. Personally, I suggest you to use all the recommendations possible that you can submit because more recommendations equals a better chance that you can be represented properly. You see, I transferred to a new school in my junior year, so all of the connections I've made previously just completely crashed, except for my mentor. My mentor still wrote a recommendation for me, and they knew me since I was like 4th grade. but use as many teachers as you can. Okay, tip number 5, California schools, you just need to write one application, pay the money, and you can apply to all of the California schools, public schools. I suggest you do this if you're aiming to try to just get into a college. I suggest you do that. Last tip, you will be asked to list your senior courses, and I've heard a rumor that if your letter grade drops more than 2 letters, so if you're getting A's and you get a C of just one course is enough for them to reject you after they accepted you. This is just a rumor that I've heard. I don't know the truth of it, but just keep this in mind because better to be safe than sorry, right? Well, that'll be it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. I love all of you. Please don't subscribe. I will see you in the next video. Bye.